the math says like 106 cars, which was how they operated those trains. They would fill those sidings up with a whole train, and as the entire coal train would come over the hill and the helper would drop off, and usually the engine would drop off the front, or sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't. They would grab 50 more coppers from these middle tracks and fill out the train with 200 cars and then take it down to Norfolk. This is Stepping Stone Road, at least as of Google's latest picture, it still exists. And then this is looking toward Villamont, and this is that same place. You can see the middle track off there in the distance between the trains. Same picture, just a little bit better view. This is further down, about a mile down. There's a water tank there. You can only assume that the helpers probably would have gotten water there. Whenever you see a whole bunch of weeping willows, that's usually Villamont. I love this picture of the A. It's neat because of what's happening there. It's Montvale's middle track, so it's either dropping off some cars or picking some up to fill out a train. I don't see a train there alongside of it, so I'm guessing it just drops some cars off. But they could set off 100 cars here, and then the eastbound train would grab half of those, fill out to 200. This is just the end point at Lambert's. And what would happen is they'd come in on the main, they'd run through here, drop their train, they'd come back through here and then into the service area where the engines would be serviced. And then they'd grab up load empties and take them back to Vilna. So we're finally to the modeling section. And the first thing that I had to do was figure out if I could build a weeping willow or not that was halfway reasonable. And I did a lot of experimenting to figure out what I could come up with. And you can even see, like this is at the very beginning, I thought there was a picnic table under the tree. We've seen enough pictures that we know that's not true now. This is me experimenting with all the different materials to make the tree. I ended up trying asparagus fern, peacock feathers, floral wire, copper wire, everything under the sun. And the thing that I came up with was ostrich feathers, and I ended up spray painting those. And then the floral wire, you can see I actually tried to replicate the trunk shape to match the tree. This is me playing around, seeing if I can fit it into a 4-foot section, which you can tell I could not. I wanted to get the crossovers in there, and I tried to use number 6 turnouts, and they didn't look right, so I ended up buying number 8s, and then that made it even worse, so that's how it expanded. That's how, right there is pretty much, I mean, all of these parts are how I turned a 2-weekend project into a 2-year project. You can see so this picture is kind of interesting. I put a tripod in my dining room, and I put 3 little black dots on the floor where the tripod goes, and then I would put my camera in it, and I'd work from there to kind of try to get the spacing of everything to make it look right. You can see I ended up moving the tree a little bit in the end. Even the telephone poles I'm sorry, I keep calling them telephone poles, so the pole lines are where they should be. You can see right here, there's one right here, although it looks a little bit like a tree trunk. I had to make a little bit of a compromise just to get them to fit evenly on across the length of the module, though I wanted them to end at the end of the module. Same picture, couple interesting parts. It looks like they didn't really use the outhouse all that much. If they did, all I can think about is snakes and spiders when I look at that. Something I would like to do at some point would be to build this little, what I assume is probably like a hay barn there in the distance. I think I have enough space over on the right-hand side that I can fit that. This is just a little video from Pillars of Smoke, and the reason I like this is I don't know if this has a play button on it. We'll try it. Oh, there we go. This is I don't know if it's going to play the sound, will it?
I didn't have it hooked
Oh,
up.
don't worry about it.
Or it may play it through the laptop.
It's not that great a sound. It's live sound, but it's not that great. This is in the spring, and this is coming from the west, from Roanoke. We've got a train coming in. What's interesting here, look how fast it's moving. You think about how long the train was. 150 cars, it's gonna take a little while. I didn't do anything, I don't know if it's buffering or what.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Sorry. Let me have a look or something.
It's not fancy. It's 75 hertz. And my understanding is they just had visual cues on the ground. That was where they needed to stop. You can see the culvert there, which was just to the right of the shanty. And the crossover is right over top of that culvert. You think of the way we do model trains, you know, the caboose stops like 10 scale feet beyond the switch. Every picture I see, everything I see, you know, the caboose is a quarter of a mile down the track. This is a good photo for anybody who wants to weather steam engines in the late 50s. Pretty rusty. A lot of sand. It's worth noticing just how much sand is on the rails there. I actually have painted mine like that. Use weathering compound and white and tan paint. So for that. So this is just trying to plan it, you know, trying to line up real photos, trying to line up models. Trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. You can see the difference in distance from number 6 to number 8 switches. I'm glad I switched to the bigger ones. They look a lot better, a lot more prototypical. This is me just trying to lay everything out. I used a lot of engines to figure out my spacing. You see, even I started trying to figure out what is going on the backdrop, trying to figure out how tall the hill is going to be. I had the backdrop was custom made. We'll get to that in a second. I bought this wire. I don't know what those things are called. This foam cutter. I used a mask. I had the window open. I had an exhaust fan. It still smelled like horrible. I don't recommend using those. I mean, it did a fantastic job, and it's what you need to do. But I can't imagine what you're breathing in when you use those. But it did a great job. Here you can kind of see how I lower. This was just a photo to lower the siding and see how that looked. I was kind of starting to play around with what kind of photos am I going to be able to take once this is done. I used code 87 on the main line and code 70 on the siding, and then I realized that was wrong. I was supposed to use code 87 on the siding. I also put dents or dips in the track because apparently when you leave a Y6 parked there day after day after day, the track kind of starts to sag. It ended up looking like I just did a really bad job laying track. So when I pulled that up and put up 87, I didn't redo that. But I tried to model it correctly. This is a Google image on top. And this is mine with my 3D printed culverts. There's a pipe that goes through the middle under the track. There's a hole all the way across. I was pretty proud of how that turned out. I was able to basically just take that picture and copy it in CAD as I modeled it so that the dimensions are exact. And obviously the crossover is gone today, so you can see where it would have been. Really glad that I built the light piece up here, the LED strips and the backdrop. It really makes it stand out, but it was expensive and it was a big learning curve. Trying to source all the parts for that extruded aluminum was a real bear. And it's actually really heavy, even though it's aluminum. There's a lot of metal in that backdrop. So if I had to do it over, I used 40 by 40 millimeter, and I would probably try 20 by 20 or 30 by 30. I bet I spent $300 to $400 on aluminum parts, shipping and stuff, to build all of that. But again, I still think it's probably worthwhile because it makes it stand out. This is how I made the backdrop. Trackside scenery was phenomenal. You can see like the rantings of a madman up here that I sent to him, and he sent me back a proof almost immediately. He charged me $20 for his time, and then he charged me whatever the standard price was for the backdrop. So I think all in all with shipping it was like 140 bucks. And it's starting to kind of take shape. There was a lot of sort of kind of taking shape and a lot of changes that occurred along the way. This was just kind of the sun coming in through the window one day, and I thought I just wanted to see what was going to be possible at some point with photos. This is another one of those I see stuff in pictures and I can't unsee it. I realized there was a road up here, so then after I was starting to scenic the hill, I had to take some chisels and putty knives and hammers and get rid of the plaster and make a road. But that's always fun. So the shed. One of the neat things was the water tank. I was able to model. 3D modeling really made it possible for me to make these parts exactly. You know, I could not scratch build this stuff. Like I said, I'm not Jim Nichols. I'm nowhere near as talented when it comes to styrene. I can draw pictures on a computer though, and the printer does all the hard work. Some of the details that are impressive to me. The seams here are 3/4 of a scale inch. I mean, you can see them here. They actually come out when you print this stuff. It's amazing where printing is going, and I can only imagine where it's going to go in the future as the resins get better and better. It's still a little bit fragile, or a little bit, it'll bend with heat, but I think that, you know, the chemical processes will improve as we go forward. This is kind of change them, you can update them. You can see that this version that I first test fit is different than this one. I added a section over here when I found this picture that showed there was another section of retaining wall there. You can also see, I feel like I got the height just about right on this guy. Next step was trying to model pole lines, and there is surprisingly not a lot of details. There's nothing in the Historical Society archives that I could find that gave any indication of sizing or spacing or anything like that. And I mean, that kind of makes sense because everywhere you look, the pole lines are a lot different. They're almost every picture, their spacing is different. It just depended on what the needs of the area were. So all I had to work with was the picture. I kind of blew this picture up and kind of traced the shaping, or moved the poles up and down until they were about right. I ended up 3D printing the whole thing, which made it easier than trying to assemble it, but it made it harder to paint because there's a lot of tiny pieces on there. When I modeled it, it's all modular, so I can move them around. And I also modeled this is the only place I see this, I call it a Y bracket. It's a high voltage bracket. It's got three lines on it, one over here and then two on the other side. I only see those on Blue Ridge. I've never seen those in any other photo. So I modeled the more standard style, which is the shorter cross arm with an insulating pole on top so that people could use it either version. You can kind of see again me trying to figure out the spacing and everything for them. And this is an O-scale print. I was able to get just a little more detail in it. This is from Abe Burnett, who has one of those that he found somewhere on the side of the railroad, I assume. Here's me just printing off a bunch of these and kind of doing some mass assemblies. I made a jig because it turns out it's really hard to drill holes in round things and keep them all on the same plane, so that when you put all the cross arms in, so they're straight. So if you build a jig and you drill this straight down from the top, it works out pretty smoothly. This is Jeff Hawkins' photo, which was really helpful in figuring out colors. One of the things I noticed was I think that the high voltage wire and the static arm wire is a little more green for the signal wires, so that's how I modeled mine. It also turns out it's really, really hard, especially when you start to get older, to see that wire over top of scenery. So I had to have a white background, and I had to have some spotlights, and it was still difficult. If I had to do more than 6 of those things, I don't think I'd have done it. This is the level of detail that's possible, and probably even a little bit more if I were maybe a better modeler. I like this jig. I ended up buying a kind of a precision drill press. I wouldn't say precision, but from Amazon. It's like 90 bucks, and it made this a lot easier. I was breaking a ton of bits before I did this. This is the little press I have. I actually I like it a lot. I use it for a lot of different things. One of them is what Jim was showing earlier, the nut bolt washer castings for the cabooses. I also modeled a little jig so that I could figure out where to put the holes. If anybody is interested in those, if anybody has any of the, I made one for the AMD kits, and I made one for the brass models as well. I did not make one for Overland, although I probably could. I have an Overland CF too. But it fits right over the cupola, and then you can know exactly where to put your nut bolt washer castings. And it works for both sides. And I had to put a cutout for the window sashes for the bathroom window, which I figured out the hard way when I didn't do it the first time. More details. These are the joint bars were kind of interesting. They make these, it's phosphor bronze, they're etched, stamped. They look really cool. They super glue onto the track. I ended up using a razor saw and cutting joints everywhere I put one of those things, which probably was overkill, but I see it, so it's good enough. They offer all different track sizes. They also offer them in, instead of 6 bolts with 4-bolt pattern, they also offer a 6-bolt with the second and 5th bolt missing for like sidings and stuff like that.
And like,
Yeah.
I hear Allison Krauss sing, just as crazy as me.
So the next thing I made, again, 3D printing, I made a derail, and I was able to piece that together from some of the parts I found. I actually realized I have this turned 90 degrees wrong, so I'm going to reprint it. That's a nice thing about 3D modeling is you can fix your mistakes really easily. The derail works. It's a manual derail, so it's a flip style, where at the siding, they would have had one that kind of went down into the ties and then came up and over with that type of crank. But for model purposes, it works, and it actually, if you drive an engine over it, it will derail the engine. So found that out the hard way too. Just similar area here. We can see the little showcase miniature double door cabinet. I was able to, that was a lucky find, although that would have been an easy 3D model. But when I just staring at this picture long enough, that stood out, and I figured I had to model it. This was my first foray into static grass, and that was the whole purpose of building this. You can see when I bought the Woodland Scenics one and I started playing around, I did a terrible job. It turns out 2 parts, I didn't know what I was doing. You have to put shorter grass first and then taller grass into the shorter grass, because the taller grass needs something to stick to stand up, otherwise it just falls over under its own weight. So I got better at it. The top view is a kind of a more, after a little bit of trial and error. Larry Puckett from Model Railroader, he's the DCC guy on YouTube, has an article on using a 20,000 volt electrostatic generator. So I built one. It's kind of scary. It crackles. Your hair on your arm stands up when you use it. It's got, I used really thick silicone wire, insulated wire. If you don't have the mesh lid thing on, and you turn it on and you're holding it in your hand, the static grass just shoots out of it. So it works really well. And it's cheap. It costs like 25 bucks to build. This is the assortment of grass. Like everything overkill, I bought way too much grass. I couldn't get the colors to work right. There was a lot of trial and error. Whatever you do, stick to 1 or 2 colors. I found a company in the Netherlands, Lars Opthoff, who makes some fantastic shrubbery, and that's what I used. I really like this stuff. It's kind of expensive. I did a lot of trial and error. Again, I bought a lot of stuff, different colors, different heights, to find what I liked. So I probably bought as much that I didn't use as what I did use. And just another example of, I put a little person in there just to show the scale. Liquitex acrylic medium. As somebody who has used Elmer's glue my whole life, this stuff is phenomenal. It's so much better than Elmer's glue. It will release with alcohol. So if you want to spray or dip some alcohol on it, and it's more rubbery. So pieces don't fall off. And I learned that from Boomer Diorama, who's a guy on YouTube that's a phenomenal modeler. He does all his ballast with it. He said he uses it instead of super glue as well, because when you have a detail on a locomotive and you knock it with super glue, it's prone to just snap off. But with the acrylic medium, it's more flexible. It's almost like caulk. Again, I look at too many pictures and I find things that I did wrong. The left side of the hill at one point had corn on it, so I found some 3D models of corn, and I'm going to put those up there. I printed 80, and my best guess is I'm probably going to need about 1,000 of them, so I can't wait to plant those. I'll probably be still talking about doing that 5 years from now. I found this picture of John Henry in the siding. So that was my justification to buy a model of it, I was very, very fortunate. I made a comment about it on the mailing list, and one of the members said, hey, I've got one, I'll give it to you for a really good price. It's an Alco, and I don't really ever plan to run it, but I'm just glad to have it, so now I can park it there and take a picture. Model U figures. These figures are amazing. The scale and detail level on these is just incredible. They're from Great Britain. They're somewhat expensive. They're probably $5 a figure, but they can make a scene. And when we look at a model of an engine, it doesn't always look all that big, but when you put those guys right next to it, it suddenly looks enormous. A little bit of Photoshop smoke there. Everything else is real. There's the guys after I painted them, and it just kind of tells a scene. There's a guy up there in the cab talking to the guy down the ground. You can see I got the little sapling down there. And we're just about finished here. These are just some of the pictures of the module.
Mike, is this natural sunlight?
No. It's a funny story. I put the LED lights strips, and they're the color changing, so you can mess with the temperature. But funny thing, your camera will fix that to exactly what I don't exactly know how to fix that. I mean, I know you can turn off auto white balance, but every picture comes out looking like that. So, I do play around with them a little bit in Photoshop and whatnot, but.
War against technology.
Your photos will really help you to realize the things you're doing wrong. And like one of the things that I realized recently is there's no frame underneath these Y6s, and so I'm working on a 3D model to fix that just kind of fits in there and kind of doesn't interfere with the drawbar. You see, I got my wires down finally. I don't know, anybody who was here last year, we left the module in the car for like an hour and a half in the morning, and the sun had already softened the resin. And so the easy wire, which is stretchy, I added some trees, and I redid most of the scenery on the hill, most of the ground up cover up there to kind of match what I actually could see. This is Jeff Hawkins' photo here of the actual place, or the actual siding still, or you can see the culvert still exists. And on the right here, that picture on the top and bottom is the same point of view. This is just some pictures of backwards pushers. Those are mostly at Villamont. We think they're all at Villamont, except for the top left is probably at Montsac, according to Ken. And I think that's it. Do you have any questions?
I get the lights back here, please.
Anybody have any questions? Kind of asked them during, so.
Is that micro-engineering flex track?
At first, then I switched to Walters. The micro was harder to work with. Once it's painted and ballasted, it all kind of looked the same, but it was tighter, and the one thing I liked about it was the spikes. The spike heads actually looked a little more realistic, but it just, when I worked with it, it was kind of hard to work with, so I ended up, I just happened to have somebody had given it to me. It was the Code 70, and I just thought it was, if you think it's hard to put anything on, Code 100, it's really hard to put on Code 70 and 55. I don't think I can imagine doing a whole railroad that way.
What spot tempts you to, diorama next?
Jaeger, so that's what started the whole thing. I've already modeled, two of the main buildings there, the coaling station and the water tower. My goal would be to have both of those to be able to bring next year. The engine house will be the next project, and then the ash conveyors, the cinder conveyors. I'm not sure if those are the Roanoke style, Tim, is that right? Or Norfolk style? Which one is it?
The coaling,
Yeah, I think it's Norfolk.
Norfolk style, more
So,
on that.
if I understand how
Smaller
those work,
coaling.
they used those as coal conveyors in the beginning, and then when they built the coaling station, they reversed them and used them as ash lifters, because you can tell from the spacing where they're at, but then they were still there, because they're in different eras. They're in different parts of that yard. So that's my plan. I'm going to do that as a 30 by 14 foot model, 30 inch by 14 foot model. That'll be two sections that'll hopefully kind of sit over top of one another. I'll be able to throw them in a minivan and bring them.
3D printer, do you use, is it resin or is it the?
Resin, yeah.
Resin.
Yeah, the filament style printers are getting better and better, but they still have a lot of layer lines. The resin printers, like I said, on the roof of that one shanty, I'm able to do a 3/4 of an inch HO scale seam, and you can see it, and it looks right. I can do rivets, and they look right, and they're to scale. You can't do that with filament and have it look the same. It doesn't look like a model that you bought from BLI or something like that. So, there are more and more files available to just print that you can download and print. You're never going to find specific ones that you can find, but you can come close. If you want a water tower, there's lots of water towers. If you want a station, there's lots of stations. There's no Blue Ridge station, but there's.
That second class station that was available there for a while, P&F station, that was pretty much on the money on Blue Ridge, and occasionally you'll see some of them around still available.
Yeah.
Mike, I know you're as crazy as me. Have you looked at Central Valley tie strips instead of flex track?
Yes, I am. Matt has built his whole layout that way, and I go see it, and I like it. I definitely would
The
consider
track
it.
detail's even better.
So, for Auville, I probably won't care because it'll all be covered in cinders. So I'll probably use flex track again for that. Anybody else? I thought there was something over there. Yes, Andre.
Somewhere I read, you mentioned the stiffness of microengineering flex. I've used PSC flex. It's as stiff. It's like it's like a barbell or something. But somewhere I read you can use dripped windshield washer fluid along the rail.
To like lubricate the rail. to the
It
plastic.
actually works. You can bend it easier.
One other thing I noticed was the ties, I think, are thinner. Is the microengineering, they're not as tall.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
you can't use as much ballast.
Yep.
So that was another thing I noticed, the difference.
Yeah, they're all
There's a
different
lot of
ways.
stuff I'd like to 3D model. In between this and Auville, I may try to do a couple of car projects. I kind of got a long ways along already on the M1 RPO. I've got the sides done. I need to figure out how to do the roof. If I do that, then I can print the whole car. I'd also like to do an H10 hopper maybe, just because there were so many of them and they're so unique. I think that would be kind of fun. May not be a terrible project.
So get the Norfolk style hoist, because a bunch of us could use
So
those.
yeah, and the water tower too. The one difference, I mean, the one in Roanoke was the 6-leg style. It's a little different, but it's the same style tower, body, or tank. Another problem is the roof. It's an open roof, but not real sure what girder